It's not much of an intro, but it is an intro. So anyway, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. It is Comic Art Convo. This is our second episode, and I am joined, as I always will be, by the man known as Sequential Treasures. And I said it without sounding like Elmer Fudd. I said Sequential Treasures without saying Sequential Treasures.
Salute everybody, especially the people in Ukraine who are kicking Russian butt.
Yeah, well, let's hope they can keep it up. I got my Jaws shirt on. I don't know if that helps, but there it is.
I got on mine here. It is what it is.
Boy, ain't it the truth. Well, let's see. Leg Kick is here because Leg Kick is almost always here. Stippling Vaughn is here. Nice. And Neon Todd Studios. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're going to talk about some of our favorite...
Oh, wait, we forgot. Past Master Dan is also here saying he hopes that you have the cannon ready to go. So I'm guessing there's going to be some fireworks tonight with people.
That
got
depends
some plans for you, I guess.
That depends on how people behave. Now, is Past Master Dan? No, wait a minute. Is he in the YouTube chat or is he in the Facebook chat? Because I don't see the Facebook. I only get the YouTube.
Yeah, I've got YouTube up, and that's where I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it. It's right, very
I'm
first
not
one.
Seeing him.
Pope Aaron has that cannon ready to go.
I don't see it. Why am I not seeing it? Well, that's really strange. K Manifesto's here. Pork Hunt is here. I'm seeing some of them. Well, I guess if I can't see him, I can't blow him up because I won't know what he's saying. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about covers that helped us fall in love with comics. And that was the Sequential Man's idea, kind of playing off the whole February, Valentine's Day.
What is February known for? It's Valentine's Day. And
that's right.
Of course, what's Valentine's Day about? It's about love. So I thought, why don't we talk about what gave us the love for comics in the first place, which is why we're all here.
Exactly. So let's not waste any time and let's get rock and roll. Now, I'm going to show your cover first and we'll just go back and forth. Now,
but before you do that,
okay.
The love didn't always start with the comics themselves. There was a couple other things that came before it that I have here to show you. So I'm going to show you the first one right here.
There was comic love before comic books. Is that what you're telling me?
Right here. My Spider-Man blanket.
Wow.
Is that 1978?
Is that Jazzy John Romita on there? I can't see.
I believe it is, yes.
Well, look at that. Now, that's a blanket.
I actually have saved that thing more times than I can count over the years before I took it with me when I finally moved out from home. My mother, on at least 3 different occasions, tried to get that to the Goodwill, and I saved it every time.
Oh, no, you're pulling it back as she's dragging you out to the curb.
And then the second thing is this other item, which I actually found a video on it on YouTube. So I'm going to give you the link here in the private chat so you can boot it up real quick. It's totally awesome. This was like the thing for me when I was 4 years old.
All right. Why am I having issues here? Where's my private chat? Why is it's not showing me the private chat? There is something going on here. What am I not doing?
Well, it's not a big deal. I also have it queued up on my computer. So if you want to share my screen, I can do it that way.
Yeah, go ahead. Share your screen because I can't. Oh, there. No, I'm sorry. Duh, it's right there.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's right there.
All right, hang on. I got to hang on. I got to pull this down. There's so many technical things that go along with doing this.
We need an X-ray girl on our show.
That's right. This is
the guys who do Friday Night Kites. They have X-ray girl to handle all this stuff. We need an X-ray girl for ourselves.
Exactly. Okay. So hang on 1 second here. We'll do it. We got it. I got it under control. All right. So let me play this. Okay.
And hit the little.
This is the Hulk. You can place the Hulk into the rage cage. With a few pumps of the Hulk inflator, you can make the Hulk grow in size. Rip out of the shirt. And break out of the rage cage. The Hulk comes complete as bookshelves and assembly required from Fun Stuff.
I
had that.
From Fun Stuff.
I was 4 years old. That was like my favorite toy. I took it everywhere with me. It was like I loved that toy, the Hulk with the rage cage.
That was killer. I vaguely remember that.
I still remembered the commercial when they said he rips out his shirt and breaks out of the rage cage. I still remember the words to the commercial.
What year was that?
1978.
Okay, so
I remember I got it for Christmas. 1978. I was like the most exciting thing ever. I was like, "Oh my God, it's the Hulk!"
Did it work?
Oh yeah.
Excellent. Now, see, I would have been
bottom half of the legs and stuff was all like a hard plastic, and then the upper part was all rubbery, so it could stretch.
Okay. Yeah, I was about 14.
Those two items, the blanket and the Hulk, those are where my first taste of comic related stuff. I didn't realize they were comic books. I didn't know what they were. I didn't know about comics. I didn't know anything. So that's where it all begins right there. But then when I get into comics, we start with these covers here. And this is the first comic I ever looked at, was this one right here that Aaron's about to show you guys.
Now I'm doing this by the number that they're numbered. So number one JPEG is okay.
I arranged them exactly in order.
Okay. So this is on you. I'm going to show the number in the order that they were. Here we go. Now you're telling me that's the first comic you laid eyes on.
The first comic book that I ever had in my hands that I looked at. I was in first grade. It was the winter of 1980. I remember because it was cold, and this kid had brought this book into school, and I'm of course again I knew the Hulk because of the toy and the TV show. I always watched the Bill Bixby series. But this was She-Hulk. I'm like, a female Hulk? What's this? So I asked the kid if I could see it during class, and he let me borrow it. And I was looking through it. I'm like, wow, this is awesome stuff. And and then of course I had to quick hide it away so the teacher wouldn't see it. And almost left class with it. But he came and called me and goes, hey, my comic. I go, oh yeah, sorry, here you go. But the thing I remember most about it is that in the end of the story, She-Hulk runs off, and her father says, I'm going to get you, She-Hulk. I'm going to put you away or whatever. And he doesn't realize that it's his daughter who's She-Hulk. That's the thing I remembered most about it. Like she's just got this power, and her father's trying to capture her, but he doesn't even realize it's his own daughter. And I just remember that was the thing. And another funny bit about this is the first issue that was drawn by artist Mike Vosburgh. Now this is 1980. Okay?
Really? Mike drew that, huh?
Yes, Mike. Well, the cover I think is Buscema, John Buscema, right, who did the first issue.
I was going to say John drew the first issue, right?
Yeah, he did the first issue and he did this cover, but then interiors were done by Mike Vosburgh. And this is 1980. I started working with Mike Vosburgh in 2010, selling his art form. 30 years after this first issue right here.
Wow.
30 years, and it's like so.
It's
like
a full circle, man.
It is.
Like it's a Lion King. It's a circle of life.
But despite this was not what made me a comic book lover, because I didn't like say, oh, I gotta go out and buy comics now after reading this. It was cool, it was awesome, but it didn't quite register yet. So we got to move forward. So now we go to the next one.
Okay, so this is like you're getting a two-parter here.
Well, actually, it's a multi-parter, because mine was a long journey to get to be a comic book lover.
All right.
It wasn't a quick one the way some people's are. Like they pick up that first issue and just like they're hooked for life. It wasn't like, now this one I got in 1983. This is, remember the Marvel Treasury size? It was.
I love those. I got a few of them back here in the old bookshelf. Love them.
I got this one, and again, but it wasn't because of love of comics. I had watched the original 1983 5-part miniseries cartoon, the original G.I. Joe cartoon, the first one, and it's like I loved it. And my parents saw this, and I wanted it, and so they got it for me. It's Herb Trimpe art. It's like the first, I think, like 3 or 4 issues collected from the series that Marvel was doing at the time. And this was the next one. But again, I didn't get it because I loved comics. I got it because I love G.I. Joe.
Right.
It's like, oh, G.I. Joe is awesome. Oh, I got to get this, and that's all I wanted it for. No love of comics yet. So then we have to go on. We move forward.
Oh, so now I see where this is going now. I see where this is going. I won't spoil your thunder though.
Yes.
So there's number 3.
And here's the next one. Now
another toy tie-in.
This is 1985. Now, do you remember like at places like Kmart or at Clover where they had like either in the magazine or the toy section, the 3 packs of comics? 3
yes.
comics
Yes, I do.
From a series, and it was all right. They had Transformer ones, and me and my brother, again, this is 1985. Transformers was the bomb. Every kid loved Transformers, and we were no different. And so there were 2 3-packs. One had issue 7, 8, and 9, which you see here is number 9, and another had 10, 11, and 12. And my mother bought one of each for each of us because we both loved Transformers. And I got the one with 7, 8, and 9. But he had the one with number 10, which had Devastator on the cover, and I loved Devastator. You know, robots that transform into cars, and then transform into a giant robot. That's just too awesome. I had to have it. So I said, I'll trade you one of mine for one of yours. And he took my number 8 with the Dinobots because he liked the Dinobots. And so we traded, and I ended up with 7, 9, and 10. Now, this is number 9. I loved it because I always loved Starscream. Him and Cobra Commander, they're the guys you love to hate because they're totally irredeemable.
Yes.
And I just love that image of him getting ready to grab Circuit Breaker, who I thought was a great design on that character, by the way. And this issue also, I believe, was the very first published work by artist Mike Manley.
Really?
This was his very first work. And it's kind of funny when you think about this stuff, you know, like the G.I. Joe one before this and this one, a lot of guys cut their teeth on these tie-in stuff to toys and other franchises that it was throwaway. People didn't think, oh, this isn't going to be worth anything. And now some of that art is like buco dollars. I have a page from Mike Bosberg's run on G.I. Joe, and it's like $4,000.
No kidding. Wow.
And he saw one recently at auction. I think, what was it, with a comic, either Comic Link or Comic Connect. One of them sold it, and it was from issue 22, the first issue that had Duke and Roadblock in it, and that sold for almost $13,000.
Jeez.
So you know, these comics were done as like almost like throwaways just to get people to go buy the toys and to watch the TV shows, and yet the art on them and stuff is like huge amounts of money today. But again, still not a lover of comics yet. It was just because it's Transformers. I love Transformers. I got to get it. So we got to.
But now we're moving on to. I'm waiting. I'm wondering how far we're going to get here before you can actually say, okay, this was the comic that got me there, because these are all like licensed stuff. It cracks me up.
There you are. Star Wars 101, covered by Bill Sienkiewicz, interiors by Cynthia Martin. This is towards the end of the run. Now, this one I got later. This was in 1986, the summer between 86 and 87. And my father owned a van at the time. And so he pulled us all in the car and said, hey, let's go on a road trip. We're just going to head straight down I-95. We're just going to see America, see what we can see. So we live in Delco County, Pennsylvania, which is right across the border from Delaware. So we're just rolling down. We go through Delaware. We go through Maryland. We get right down to about the Virginia border. And then my dad's like, yeah, I think we've driven far enough. Let's head back home. But before we do, we have to stop. You know, we got to go to the bathroom and stuff. And there was a rest stop. And so we went in, and they had something I had never seen before, a vending machine with comic books in it.
I've heard tell of such things, but I had never seen one.
This is the only time I ever saw it, and it just blew me away. Because I saw them for cigarettes, I saw them for candy bars, I saw them for lots of other stuff, but I had never seen it for comics. Like, oh, I got to get something out of this. This is a comic book vending machine. And again, me and my brother, we each got one. He got the issue 3 of Aquaman, the 1986 miniseries with the blue underwater camo suit that he wore.
Yeah.
He got that, and I got this one because I saw Star Wars. I'm like, Star Wars. I got to get Star Wars. You got to get it. It's 1986. It's Star Wars. I have to have it.
So you're still buying comics based on other stuff, not based on comics.
Other things. It's not because of the comics. It's because of what they're tied to. And you know, like this one especially was a little bit of a letdown to me, because when I read it, it's like it wasn't. You know, this makes you think it's like a big action oriented. You got Han Solo blasting away and guys on horseback charging and everything. Oh, it's been a big action fest. No, it wasn't. It was almost false advertising. It's like, oh man.
Oh, my quarterback or my 65 cents. Paul Brillard says, I bet it took the Transformer movies taking off to drive those prices. I'm sure that had something to do with it. But anything that's pre like 1990 anymore now is considered vintage and classic, and that has a lot to do with driving prices too, I think. Don't you, in the original art?
Yeah, it does. But again, so I still haven't got the love of comics yet. I'm still into them a bit, but only when they're tied into something else I liked more. So
all right. But this has got to be it, though. This has got to be it.
Now we're getting to the real nitty gritty of it.
Okay.
This is 1987, October 27th, 1987. Yeah, it's DC Comics presents Superman and Black Hawk, issues number 69. Great Irv Novick cover and Dick Giordano inks. Great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in this year, it was my sophomore year of high school. No,
Okay.
my freshman year. I was 9th grade, and my best friend was in the class with me. We hadn't been in a class together for like 2 or 3 years. And this other kid was also in a class who we'd met the year before. His name was Eric, and Eric was a big comic fan. Loved Marvel stuff. My friend was more a DC guy. He liked Detective Comics. He liked Batman, Superman. He liked Sergeant Rock. So he was more the DC guy. But my friend, his friend Eric, got him into comics the year before. And so one day we're at lunch, October 27th, 1987, and this kid from another class comes over to our table and sits down with Eric, and they start trading comics. Remember when you did that? You would trade comics with people so you could read everything because you didn't have enough money to buy it all.
Right.
So he was trading with Eric, and in the trade, Eric gets this book, but he's not a DC guy. He doesn't really care for DC. So he looks over at me and he goes, "Hey, I'm not a big Superman fan here. Do you want this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's free. Who doesn't like free?" So I took it. And
can I have your Jello with that too? You know,
yeah. Can I have your brownie too? That would go perfect with it. But no, so I took it home and I read it that night, and I don't know what it was, but it just blew me away. I'm like, whoa, this is freaking awesome. This is wow. Just like boom. And so
I'm amazed. So you were a sophomore in high school?
A freshman.
Freshman. So you're 15. And so you're just
actually I was 13.
Oh, so you're like one of those brainiacs who was like, a couple of years ahead.
I did start school early, yes.
Okay, so 13. Okay, I see that then. That makes a little bit more sense because I think I got hardcore into it about when I was 12. So, I mean, you're right in that.
Well, I was 13. I was a few months away from 14. January, I turned 14. So, but this was the one. So then I went into school the next day and I found that kid. And I said, "Hey, do you have any more of those trading comics?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got some stuff to trade. Why? You got something you want to trade me?" And I said, "No." And I dug in my pocket and I put out my $2 or $3 of lunch money. I'm like, "But can I buy some from you?" And he's like, "Oh, hey, yeah, sure, come on over." And he pulled out his stash. And these next 4, we're going to kind of do in rapid succession, are the 4 comics I bought from this kid to get the love started.
All right, now. Didn't dawn on you to go to like 7-Eleven or something and buy them?
Didn't think about going to a convenience store or a comic shop. None of that. This kid this is one I got. Again, you saw the blanket, so I knew who Spider-Man was. And just again, look at that cover image by Friends and Rubenstein. Just the punching, the him ducking down, just an incredible image. I said, "Oh, I gotta have this." So, and this issue made me a DeFalco and Friends fan for life. Anytime I hear their name I followed them on Thor. I followed them to Spider-Girl. I just bought their new crowdfunded comic, The Right Project, just because it's DeFalco and Friends working together. That's how big an impact this issue made on me. So this is one of them.
Killer issue to get. That's a killer issue to get. So you bought this from the kid, from his stash.
And then the next one I got was this one. This next one was the second one I got from him.
Here we go.
Incredible Hulk. Again, notice again, just like with the Hulk toy, I knew who the Hulk was, so I had to get the Hulk.
And that's again, a Mignola cover.
Mignola cover, yes, and it's just the star cut, the white and yellow background with the other colors, and just all that pushes them all forward. It just drew me in. I'm like, wow, this is awesome looking. And little did I realize this issue was the final issue Sal Buscema drew in his 10-year run on the book.
That's it, huh?
This was his final issue on the book. After this, he left the book and went on to do other things. But this was the last issue he drew in a 10-year run spanning 10 years before this.
Wow.
So I got this one.
You ended up with all these kind of like landmark issues just by accident, you know?
Kind of. It seems that way. And then
we
got the next one coming up here.
All right.
Which will seem familiar.
Now these are all from this dealer that you ran into that got you hooked.
All from this kid who brought.
We call him your dealer. No, he was your dealer.
I don't know if I want to go there with that. That sounds a little hinky. Yeah, he's my dealer. He hooked me up. He gave me my fix. No, I don't want that. Sorry, I don't want to go there. But yeah, again, just this incredible. Again, shows you how incredible covers are. The Hulk breaking in half with Banner screaming, Bruce Banner free at last. It's like, whoa, this is awesome. I have to see this one. second issue of John Byrne's ill-fated short run on the book right here.
Oh, that's where Byrne started. That is a Byrne cover, isn't it?
Yes. And issue 314 was his first issue on the book, and this was the second one. So
314 was the Gray Hulk issue, wasn't it?
He only did 6 issues.
But wasn't the 314? Wasn't that the one with the Gray Hulk on it? Or am I thinking?
No, that's 324 had the Gray Hulk. That was by Al.
Oh yeah, you're right. The Byrne, yeah, okay, okay, yeah, I got it now.
314 has like the Green Hulk, like like stretched out arms, like he's roaring, and then like behind there's a whole bunch of his villains.
I got that. For some reason, I was thinking it was Gray, but you're right. It was Green Hulk.
This is the issue where they split Banner and the Hulk physically. Was that issue? And then the last one I got was this one, which is a little bit different now. So you're going to see something here. It's not tied to anything I knew before.
That's Kevin Nolan right there, baby.
Yeah, Kevin Nolan, and it's Strange Tales Volume 2, number 11 with Cloak and Dagger and Doctor Strange. Now I liked this one because it had the split screen effect, so you could see both stories. Something to show you both stories. I like that effect. Interesting thing to note about this one is this issue is the very first professional work by artist Dan Lawless, who did the Cloak and Dagger story in here.
Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding you. His first professional work was this issue. This is 1987 now. Remember, I did October 87. I got this. I started working with Dan Lawless selling his art 2017, 30 years apart, just like with Mike Vosberg.
Wow. Just that's just crazy how that sort of came full circle and worked out.
Yeah, to the two of the artists I work with, I saw some of their earliest works, and here it is. I worked with them exactly 30 years after first seeing their work.
That's amazing.
So and then of course after these issues, it was that was it. It was the love was there. It's been there ever since, for 35 years. So
did you, after having these 4 comics, did you kind of set on some regular buying habits in terms of titles and stuff?
Well, what happened is after I got those books, about a week later, we went to the mall. There's this mall that was just over the line into Delaware called the Tri-State Mall, and it's in Wilmington, Delaware. And there was a magazine shop in the mall connected right next to where the Kmart was. And I looked in there, and there's spinner racks with comics, and that became my new place to get them after I started collecting seriously after that.
So that was your new dealer, was in Kmart.
That was the official outlet, yes.
All right. Okay. Now the stuff I'm going to show is going to make me seem much older than you, but probably because I am. But anyway, here we go. Okay. So the very, very first book that I got, there was 2, but this is the very first one. We were on a family vacation. I was 7 years old, and this was 1971, and we went into this grocery store. We were on the road someplace, right? We just stopped to get some snacks or whatever. I don't even remember where we were going, or we were coming back from someplace. And there was this, those old wooden magazine racks they used to have.
Yes.
Okay. Well, they had magazines, but they had the comics laid out as well. And so my mom's like, you can get 2 comic books. I'm like, okay. And I saw this, and I didn't know who any of the characters were at this point. I had no exposure to them, other than maybe some stuff I'd vaguely seen on TV, right? So I was like in first grade. So, but I saw this image, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. 2 monsters fighting, I got to get this, right? And of course, spoiler alert, I read this in the back of the car, and at the end, the Thing gets distracted by Alicia, his girlfriend, right? And so he turns just as the Hulk is punching him and just KOs him, right? And so he's laid out, and we all think he's dead at the end of this issue. That's like the last panel, spoiler alert, sorry. And I never picked up comics again, probably for 3 or 4 more years. So I thought the Thing was dead for like 4 years before I actually found out that he wasn't. But so it was really kind of tragic for me. But the other book I got,
hard to go wrong saying your first comic was a Hulk versus Thing battle. I mean,
I know, and like one of the great covers of all time. Actually, this is the wrong cover. But if you'll remember, this is what you call when you're doing things in a hurry, right? Well, there's an issue, I want to say it's 8. It's actually 8, where Black Bolt is facing off with Thor on the cover, and it's a Neil Adams cover, right? And this actually tells the story better because you have this kind of like Black Panther a group, and there was like social unrest and all this kind of crazy stuff going on. And Black Bolt was, I think, under some sort of mind control. And so they were propping him up as their leader, right? So they were like, he was on this car or something when they're marching down the streets, and Black Bolt was standing there but not saying anything. And I read this thing, and because of the Neil Adams artwork, which was, much more realistic than most of the other stuff out there, I was freaked out. I mean, the political angst that was in the comic, the realistic art, it just made me really uncomfortable. So I think I read that one once. Then I went back and would read the FF one over and over again. But is actually not this issue, but issue 8, the following issue, that were the first 2 books I ever got. Now, that did not, much like you, although I thought they were really cool, it didn't really spark me getting comic books regularly. And maybe part of that was, I was 7 years old. How do I get to the store, right, to buy comics regularly or anything like that? You're just too young, right?
Yeah, so mom and dad aren't going to be down with, hey, Mom, every Wednesday we got to go down to the comic book shop. That's not going to happen.
Right. Well, there wasn't even comic book shops then. It was basically 7-Eleven, Plaid Pantry, whatever, that had the books. And I just wasn't really all that keen to. I just didn't really get it at that point. I was 7 years old, right? So I'm at our school carnival, grade school, right? And they had, like, at the back of the school, they had some people that set up with essentially, which were garage sale tables, right? And people would go like a swap meet or fly, what am I trying to say? The
flea market.
Flea market. Thank you. It's like a flea market type thing, but it was set up, in the school and parents and stuff. And so I'm walking around and I see this one table and they have this comic, right? Now it was beat.
John.
Yep. It was beat to crap, but, and I was in first or second grade and I saw this, and it was a dime. So I gave him a dime and I took it and just read the crap out of this. And now the other interesting story about this one was something happened to Spider-Man's regular costume. So he had to go steal one or from a costume shop or something. So you could see his eyes, right? He didn't have the white. You could see his eyes through it. And again, as a kid, I'm like, I don't understand. Why can I see his eyes? I don't get it. I didn't understand what was going on. And I do remember Hammerhead showed up at the end and Spider-Man was in big trouble. So once again, there I was with a cliffhanger and no way to find out how it turned out. But these were my first, exposures to comics. So then I finally made it to the Plaid Pantry or 7-Eleven, and this was this would have been 73 where I picked up these 2 books. So I had become sort of, by this point, by 73, I was nine years old. So I was really starting to get to an age where I was starting to figure this stuff out, and you started to realize how cool this stuff was.
Yeah.
So obviously this is a great Gil Kane cover with Dr. Spectrum. Seems like Iron Man was always in distress on all of his covers or getting melted or something. But I thought that looks really cool.
You think a guy in armor wouldn't have that kind of problem?
You wouldn't think so, but he is more often than not. If you go back and look at his covers, he is in distress most of the time. Oh, wait a minute here. Look at this. Henry Bemis says, Aaron's from Oregon because he just referenced Plaid Pantry. It's true. It's true. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so I picked up this one, and it oddly enough, it didn't make me an Iron Man fan, but I just liked the cover, so I picked it up. But then in true typical Aaron Lopresti fashion, I got this because, yes, it was Frankenstein. And even as a little kid, loved the Universal monster movies, right? So I see the Frankenstein monster and I'm like, I got to get this. Now, this had John Buscema art in it. And this was, if you remember, the first 6 issues had Mike Plug, and then Buscema took over on issue 7. So this is Buscema's first issue on Frankenstein. So it was, it was well drawn. And of course, Plug stuff was great, obviously, before that as well. But this was an interesting comic. There was a witch in it, and there was like it was very grim. I can't remember exactly if the girl died or something. It was something really grim about the end of this book. So I was kind of like, made me very uncomfortable after reading it, you know. It just it was like
it's funny you bring this up because when I was little, about probably like around 6 or 7 years old, I watched the original Frankenstein movie, and that night I went to bed and I had nightmares.
Yeah.
The original Frankenstein movie gave me nightmares as a little kid. So yeah.
There's a couple things that gave me nightmares when I was a kid, but mostly not. But this book, for some reason, the story, I want to get a copy of this because I don't have one right now, and go back and read it again and kind of figure out what it was that sort of disturbed me so much. But
give yourself some new nightmares.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, go ahead.
I noticed the theme here is that, you know, your first comic was two monsters fighting, and the comic that's here now that you're like the one that really kicked you off is a monster fighting. I'm noticing a theme here, Aaron.
I know. I see the art in these books has influenced your own. He's echoing what you just said. Yeah, it's the monster stuff. Just
well, and it's funny too because this you said is John Buscema, and that issue of FF was also John Buscema. So it's like Big John was like your gateway drug.
Okay, that is true. So that was in 73, and so shortly after that, when I turned in 74, I turned 10 years old. So at that point, I was able to get on my bike. And this is back in the day when your parents would let you just leave the house all day, and then you came back like before dinner, and they were never even concerned. You know,
there was no such thing as helicopter parents back in the day. It was
right, exactly. So I get on my bike.
You go out and play. You go out and play. Just come back when the streetlights are coming on. That was
exactly. I didn't know where you were at or anything else, and so anyway, I got on my bike. I rode it was probably a mile to the Plaid Pantry. There I am, name dropping again, the Plaid Pantry, because that was the closest place that would have had comics at that point that I was aware of. So that's where I picked up. I keep forgetting I got to share these. I'm talking about them. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe someone wants to see what I'm talking about. Now, how's that a cover to grab your attention right there?
There you go.
And that's one of my all-time favorite covers, period. And it was just like, whoa. And that was what I think probably catapulted me into being a Spider-Man fan, because I never missed another issue after this. And
isn't it interesting? Both of us got hooked on Spider-Man and into comics with him fighting a goblin. You with the Green Goblin, me with the Hobgoblin.
Well, one thing you can't argue is that Spider-Man has a great rogues gallery of villains.
Yeah, probably the only one that can match him is Batman.
Yes, Batman and Spider-Man are just like, I suppose you could say the FF because so many characters first appeared in their books, but boy, the ones that have sort of became iconic have been Spider-Man and Batman. But yeah, this is a terrific cover. I'm not sure if this is Gil Kane inked by Romita, if this is pure Romita. It looks like it's probably pure Romita. But just a great cover. The use of the color, how you make, Harry and Peter Parker red there, so they kind of, separates them from the.
Well, and again, they're in poses like they're getting ready to throw down as they're here in their costumes throwing down. I think that's a nice symmetry going on there.
Yeah, I should do that because Ross Andrew was the Spider-Man artist when I started reading Spider-Man. I mean, he was the guy. I came in after Romita and after Kane, and all those guys had worked on the book. So my first exposure to Spider-Man was Ross Andrew. And I discovered the other guys in retrospect when I discovered comic shops that would sell old comics, right? Back in this time period, which was 74, 75-ish, I think it's 74, they were old bookstores around Portland that would have, paperbacks and used and stuff, but they would also have used comics. We didn't have comic shops at that point. So we discovered these sort of old bookstores in Southeast Portland, and we would either ride the bus down. Again, my parents, ride the bus down to Southeast Portland, just be back before it gets dark.
I wouldn't recommend doing that today.
No, I would not even at my age, so it's like, but anyway, so we found this one bookstore, and it's still there. They just reopened it actually. And I think it's the daughter of or the granddaughter of the lady that owned it when I first discovered it. When we first discovered it, me and my neighborhood buddies. But it's Serendipity Bookstore over in Southeast Portland, and they had this wall. Right, you'd walk in, and there was a front desk, like a hotel desk might have, you know. And then behind that was this wall of boxes that was full of comics. And it would say, in alphabetical order, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, X-Men, all in these boxes. And they would be all these, and none of them were bagged or anything, right? They were just stacked in there, and you'd go through them and find the ones you wanted. And she had written the price on the inside front cover right up the top corner in pencil, right? So this was 50 cents, or this one was $1, or whatever. And so, but she had this line that she ran from, one corner of the store to the other that hung from the ceiling. And over that, she had these like double bags, like saddle bags, but they were, they were vinyls, like you'd comic book bag type things, but they were like saddle bags. And she'd have a comic in each one, and she'd hang it over this rope. Okay. So one of the things I told my dad was, and he never got it, he never got it, that, take me to the comic book shop, for my birthday. That was what I wanted for my birthday present. Give me $5 or whatever and take me to the comic shop. So he's like, ah. So he takes me to the shop over in Southeast Portland. And this is what's hanging from one of those plastic saddlebags. And I was like, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know who it was. And again, John Buscema, right? I was like, I have got to have that. And that was $3. So I still remember. So I got that for my birthday. I think I had $12. I think my dad gave me a couple bucks, and I'd been saving my money or whatever for months, And so I think I had $12, but this one cost me $3. It was like, it wasn't in great condition. It was like a VG or something. I mean, I have a nicer copy now, but that was the most awesome book when I got that and took it home and just read, because it's a king size, right? And it was like, a double issue, and it was just, oh my gosh, it was just awesome. And so this is really when I started, I'd already started buying new comics, but this is the book that sort of got me into collecting older comics, right? Because then you start thinking, what is all the stuff I've missed? Like, what are all the Spider-Man issues I've missed?
Yeah.
Go back there and buy, and then you start finding out about Gwen Stacy, who at the time I started reading was already dead, and then you start finding out all this great stuff that happened before you started reading, and you get all caught up, right?
Well, it's funny, your issue of Spider-Man that got you started 3 issues earlier, 133, is the issue that was out on newsstands when I was born.
I think that was the Molten Man.
Yes, Molten Man. And I believe the cover was by Jazzy John. The interior was totally Ross Andrew, but the cover was by Jazzy John.
So you're saying I'm a few years older than you are.
He's like fighting him up, like on a subway car, and like he's like got Spider-Man pinned down, he's like ready to punch him.
Yes, and he's melting because he's starting to burn himself up or something. Yeah. Okay, now here's the second part to this strange story of mine. I went into a bookstore in 1976, and those of you who watch my Sunday show obviously know this price guide I use quite a bit for bits on my Sunday show. This is the first price guide I ever saw. And I realized at that moment that, hey, wait a minute, these things are worth money. I better start taking care of these. Now, what they always did in the back of these price guides is they would have a photo gallery of covers, right? Like this. Of just different comics. Most of the time they were Golden Age and things like that, right? So one of the comics, I don't know if it was in this one or the next year's one, but yeah, it was in the next year's one. But I saw this comic and I thought to myself as a 12-year-old kid, it's like, man, would I love to someday own this. And remarkably, I do own it, but I will tell you, it took me from when I was 12 years old to when I think I got this in the year, when I was after CrossGen. So, 2000.
That would be definitely post 2004.
Yeah, 2004, 2005, 2006, somewhere in that neighborhood. So from 1976 to 2006, it took me that long to find a copy of this book. And I got it from
30 years.
Yeah. Now I did see on 2 occasions, I saw the Mile High copy, which is a 9.6. And I was like, I could never afford it, you know?
You're not an oil cheek.
Yeah, exactly. So I did see the Mile High twice in my travels, but that was something I couldn't afford. So I was looking for a copy I could afford. I picked up a fine grade copy of this from Motor City Comics back in 2006 or something. And but it took me that long. These books are so hard to find because the National Comics, these were a Quality Comics group, right? And they had National and Hit Comics and Smash Comics. They had the best artists, Reed Crandall, Lou Fine, Will Eisner, that worked on these books, but they weren't popular characters. So they're around, but man, they're hard to find.
Well, that's because a lot of this was done during the war, or like just after the war, and you had like you had the advertisement in the comics about like recycling, like, hey, help out the war effort and recycle. And, oh, let me recycle this comic, and so like everybody recycled that stuff, and like no one thought about, oh wait, this could be worth money in the future.
Yep, and this particular book has one staple in it because they had to go from 2 staples to 1 staple during the war because of the shortage of the metal available. So that's another interesting little fact for you guys that aren't as old as me. Okay, so then there was one other book that I also saw in the photo gallery in the price guides, the Overstreet price guides, and I thought it was so bizarre because look at the Hulk's tiny little feet by Ditko. It was such a bizarre take on the Hulk. It was like, but it was just captivated me. And I was like, I've got to get that book someday. And I finally got that book in a nice, I think it's a 6.0. It's graded and doesn't have any chipping on it, which is amazing because this book always up in the right-hand corner has chipping. And I was able to get a 6.0 without any chipping in it at a Comic Link auction probably 5 or 6 years ago, and got a pretty good deal on it. So those are a couple of my grails that I actually
saw. Last issue of the original run.
Yep.
And the only one drawn by Ditko.
Yep. Yeah, he did the interior as well. And but it's always one I've wanted to get since I was a kid, and I finally landed it. Like I said, a few years ago. So the 2 Grail books, actually there's 3 of them, and I got all 3 of them. The other one I saw in there was the Mask of Fu Manchu. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It has the Wally Wood cover. It actually has Wally Wood interior art in it. And that was one that here, actually the picture of it is in here. Let me show it real quick. Because it's the artwork on it is fantastic. And I got this at a Seattle show. I'm going to go full screen here for a minute. There it is. The Mask of Fu Manchu.
I have seen that.
Right there. That's a Wally Wood cover, and he did the entire inside of the book. Let me get that sheen out of there. We go. A big, head of Fu Manchu right there. Very cool.
The level of detail in that is amazing, especially considering the times when at the time, a lot of artists weren't really going super detail on comic book art. They were trying to keep it more simplistic to crank it out on a monthly basis. And here he is doing this. Is like, that's some incredible detail for the times. I mean,
oh yeah. I mean, Wood was, I mean, there was like a group of guys, Mac Rayboy was another one that was doing like work that was next level where most people were just kind of, cranking it out. But there was a few guys that were really doing nice work. But those 3 books, even though they were way before my time in terms of collecting, obviously I wasn't even born for the Golden Age stuff, and the Hulk I wasn't born for. I really wasn't. And I was only 4 when that Silver Surfer first came out. So those were ones I got as a collector, but they were ones that I dreamt about getting since I was 12. So it was like I had this awakening where I fell in love with comics off the newsstand and started reading them. But then there was this second awakening where I realized that there were back issues and those were a collectible market. And then I started getting into that. And so I had a really hard time because I had to buy new comics, but I also had to save my money to buy old comics at the same time, because I was doing
I had
both.
the same problem when I started really getting in. And then I started to find actual comic shops. Like they were just dedicated to comics. And it's like, oh man, these are awesome. And there's so much stuff, but it's like only so much money. And you're trying to get your new stuff. And you go to get the back issue, and like there's like 4 copies of the same book, but one's like $2 because it's beat up, and then the real nice cherry one's $20. Like, what do you do? Oh, I'll get the $2 copy so I can read it. You don't think, oh, wait a minute, get the expensive one because that's the money issue. You don't think that. You're like, I just want to read this, and that's
right. Exactly. That's how I did when I was a kid. We would just like we would get whatever copy, whatever condition it was in, we'd get just so we could have the copy, right? Charlie Lee says, I had an Incredible Hulk #1. I paid $80 for it in the 90s. Oh,
wow.
You know, so he said I had, which means he no longer has it. Charlie, I feel bad for you because that's one expensive book right now.
I never had any of the original 6. The closest I ever got to the beginning of a Hulk run was I had issue 103 when they changed Tales to Astonish to the Hulk.
Yes.
And I had issue 103. That's the closest I got. I had issues of Tales to Astonish too. I think I even had I didn't have the first with the Hulk. I think I had his second appearance in it. But what was it, number 60, where it introduced the leader and the humanoids that he fights, those pink humanoid guys that are all rubbery.
Yes. It was Gil Kane cover.
Yes, I had that. That's the closest I got to the beginning of the Hulk when I had my original collection.
Now, Charlie Lee wants to know, how much is Web of Spider-Man #1 worth? I'd have to say off the top of my head, that's probably in that $25 to $40 range, and near mint would be my guess.
Yeah, that sounds about right, around the $40, $25 to $40 range.
Actually, I have last year's price guide. And the funny thing is the price guides, they're just a guide because
the
way stuff is going right now.
We'll try to get that number on some of that stuff. Good luck.
Yeah. But this will give you at least an idea, because I think I still have my Web of Spider-Man. That's Charles Vest cover in his black costume. Here we go. Web of Spider-Man #1. They've got it here for $35. So my guess is probably if you had a 9.2 CGC, it'd probably be like $50 or $60 would be my guess.
And what if you had a 9.6?
Well, now you're talking, I bet a 9.6, 250, maybe 300. I don't think it's that hard of a book. That's the thing. You know what I mean? It's much easier to find those post 70s books, you know, starting in 1980 and up. That'd be post 70.
Well,
it's a lot easier to find high grade copies.
When again, like people like yourself and I think they started noticing comics have value, and so everyone started saving everything post 70s.
Right. That's why I don't buy post 80 books for the most part. If from a collector standpoint, everything I get is pre 1970 because those are the ones where you had lower print runs in the 70s because the industry was dying for the umpteenth time. People didn't take as much care of them. And then that's what happens. Obviously, the older you get in the 60s, it's even harder to find high grade books, the 50s, 40s, and so on. But yeah, I don't collect anything post 1980 unless it's like a real special first appearance or something that, you know, I feel like I had to have.
Some key issue or something like that.
Right, exactly. All right, dudes, those are our covers that got us to fall in love with comics. But now, because this is Comic Art Convo, we want to take a look at some original art that I guess is, would we say it's seasonal Valentine's Day art? Is that
we're going to keep with the theme since it is Valentine's month. You know, we may as well keep with the theme and do something a little more in the lovey-dovey section.
Okay, well, let's share yours that you brought for today's show. There it is. We'll show the color version in a minute.
And this is a page from Green Lantern Corps Quarterly #6, the Alan Scott story by Jim Ballant. And as you can see, if you slide down there in the very bottom left-hand corner there, you see Andrew Peapoy doing the inking. And you know, this is a great scene with Alan and his wife. This is where he had been de-aged and he was young again, but yet his wife isn't. And here she is, you know, it looks like she's dying, and yet she doesn't. And I just thought this was like a perfect one for Valentine's Day, you know, because of the emotion of the scene. You know, here he is, he's trying to use his power to save her, and it's not working, and he says, you know, that only you can save yourself. And then she does, and then the very end with the hands holding each other and, you know, clasping on each other like that. That's like, to me, like that's Valentine's Day. That's what it's all about right there. And it's like this is just, and it's interesting because, you know, Ballant is known for being how can I say this? Yeah, saucy, vivacious, you know, voluptuous, and there is none of what he's known for in this. This is like strict storytelling work. And he shows he has those chops. I mean, the 3 panels in the middle here with where with her, and all you see of him is part of his face, and yet it gets the emotion across. Look at this, that top corner where his face is at, and you can see his reactions just enough that you get the emotion of the scene in there. And
so was that what drove you to buy this? I mean, what was what it really?
One was the emotion of the scene, because I'm always a sucker for a really good scene. Another was it was Ballant, and I'm jonesing. I really want to get a Catwoman page by him because that's like his claim to fame is his Catwoman run. But I haven't found one yet, so I said this is going to be kind of a placeholder. This is my Jim Ballant page until I can find a Catwoman one. And third and lastly is, I don't want to get too much out of school because she's in the chat and she'll get angry. But my wife is a little bit older than me, and
just a hair.
And so, but here's a younger Alan with his wife who is older, and it kind of had like a symbiosis. Like that's kind of like us, you know. She's the older one, and I'm the younger one, and yet the love is there, and that's so it kind of reflected my own relationship a little bit. And I'm like, I gotta have it for this. It's my relationship in comic book form.
Now, did you get this online? Did you get this at a convention? How did you come across it?
I got it off of eBay. And let me see how much. I think I can tell you how much it was here in a sec. Let me bring up this here on my other computer so I can check this out here. And when you hear the price, again, Ballant's art, is not cheap because there's not a lot of it out there. He's kept a lot of his art himself over the years. That's why you don't see a lot of Ballant stuff out there. So when you find his stuff, it's never cheap. It's never like you're going to go like, oh, here's $100 and I can get a Ballant page. That doesn't happen. Let's see, where's it at? And
how long ago did you get it?
3 years ago.
So really, pretty recently.
Yeah, fairly recently. It was something just came up recently, and I guess I just saw. I'm like, oh, I got to get this, and it's right. Yeah, $225.
Not bad at all
for a 1993 Jim Ballant, and I believe also this story was the last story he did before he started his Catwoman run.
Really? Interesting.
This was the last issue. This was the last issue that came out with Jim Ballant art pre-Catwoman run. Yes.
Was he the regular artist on this book, or was this just a single issue?
No, he just did this. He just did this. It was a 2-part story in issues 5 and 6, and this is from part 2, issue 6. And so he did those 2 parts, but this was the last book that came out right before his Catwoman run started, and so the last pre-Catwoman Ballant art.
See, my problem is I would guess you probably spend most of your time when you're on eBay looking for original art, and I spend my time on eBay looking for old comics, and I probably should be spending a little more time looking for original art.
Well, I just got in my first couple of packages for this year of stuff I bought. Now, I'm not going to tell anybody what it is because I might use it here, so I want to surprise you guys with what it is, but I will give you the names.
Oh.
Scott McDaniel.
Okay.
And Everett Hartsoe. They're the ones I've got so far. And I got another guy from the fascist dictatorship of Canada who's sending me a couple pieces. And those... yes.
Oh, it took me a second, but I got it.
And again, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but the artist, one piece is Tom Lyle, and the other is Keith Giffen. So I got those cool. On tap for this year so far. So,
do you look for specific things in terms of elements on a page, or you just, if you're like, man, if I can get a piece of so and so's art, I'm going to get it.
I used to be that way, where it was like I just want to get a piece by that guy because it's just to have a piece. Because I used to have a Writes and page. It was from the Punisher POV miniseries he did back in 1991. Punisher with like a horror story background,
right? And
it wasn't a great page. It was just a page with the villain of the piece before he becomes the major villain that he becomes in the story. Right. And it was a very quiet scene. It just nothing really happened. It's like one of those pages like I just have it so I can say I have a Writes and page.
Right.
And I eventually got rid of that because I'm like, I don't want that anymore. I've kind of moved on from that. Like, you know what? I don't want to get stuff just because it's an artist. Like, oh, I have a piece by that artist. I don't want that. I want a piece that actually either says something or is like significant historically or is just like an awesome, balls to the wall, like, whoa, that blows me away type image. Right. It's got to have some gravitas to it now for me to get it. I don't get it just because it's a certain artist.
All right. Okay. That makes sense. it's so hard. There's so much good art out there these days, and none of it's, I mean, if you can find a good buy on an original piece of art, that's a great thing these days, because it's like all collectibles, comics as well, and the art is just so inflated right now. It's really hard to find a good deal for those of us on limited budgets for spending for such things.
Well, the artists I work with, that's what we try to do. We try to keep prices reasonable. We try not to gouge everybody for every single dime, because we figure, it's better in the long run that way.
Okay, I'm going to show you a piece because I had to find a piece. I don't have a ton of pages, but as I said, I spend more time and money on comics than I do original art. But when you said the kind of the romance theme and all that kind of stuff, I thought, this might work. Now, I didn't scan it, so I'm going to hold it up. So let me steal the screen here for a minute. Sure. This is from my good friend Paul Ryan, who has unfortunately passed away and is no longer with us, but he gave me this many years ago. And I'm sorry, I was going to share the screen. I'm holding it. I can't share the screen. This is a daily strip for Amazing Spider-Man, inked by Joe Sinnott. So I believe Stan Lee scripted it. And
wow, that is like all of them are no longer with us now. That is wow.
Yeah. So I got Paul up there too, Aaron, my buddy. Really, best always, Paul. And then some notes. We've got notes in the where is it? There we go. Well, have your letterer put in, hey, Curly. So you've got some, I don't know who wrote those notes, but there it is. And yeah, Paul Ryan and Joe Sinnott, inked by both of them. And the date on this was 8/15/93. So
yeah, I can see the romance. The panels 3 and 4 is the romance right there.
Yep. But you've got, it's Spidey and MJ. So, there's a.
Well, I mean, this is right up there with like Superman flying and holding Lois. It's the same thing.
Yes, exactly. And you got just a couple of thugs down there in the last two panels, I guess, setting up the action for the next strip.
Well, it says right there in that final panel, next disaster.
Well, something bad's going to happen then. But it is kind of cool because Paul was usually inked by Danny Bulanati or Bolandi. I'm trying to think. I think
Bulanati.
But yeah. And so I think it was a real thrill for him to get to work with Joe Sinnott on this, the daily strip. And Paul was the consummate professional that he was always, he's a guy that would meet deadlines and kill himself to meet deadlines. So, he was probably working on the FF while he was doing the Spider-Man daily strip too,
Well, so, I've always felt that Paul Ryan is one of those, I call him, he's the comic artist.
Yes.
His professionalism, the way his style is, it just screams comic books.
Yes. And classic comics, and and he was he was a great guy, super nice guy. He gave me so much art. I always felt bad because when we became friends, I was just starting out, and he was already working on the FF, and established and everything. And so he'd go, "Hey, let's trade some pages." And I'm like, "You don't want any of my crap, pal, but I'll take plenty of yours."
What, you want to trade Star Trash for FF? What's wrong with you?
Exactly. You want these what the pages for FF pages and stuff like that. And so,
although again, considering when I showed you what that splash page went for, maybe he wasn't quite so wrong after all.
No, that's right. Well, the funny thing is, I met him first. Shelley and I met him and Linda, his wife, at a Seattle show back in the 90s, and we went out to dinner, and so we were looking at his stuff, and he goes, "You want to trade some art?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." I said, "But I don't have anything that's worthy enough to trade for." I said, "No, don't worry about it. Here, take some of these. What do you like? What do you like?" And so I'll show later, but I got an Iron Man page from him and an FF page. And I said, "Look, you're not taking any of these crappy pages." I said, "Let me do you a commission where I can focus on and I think I did him a Space Babe or something like that, and sent it to him, which I felt right. I felt better than, the what the pages or whatever garbage I happened to have in my, no, the what the stuff wasn't garbage. It was genius. That I happened to have in my portfolio at the time. And so, but then he would just throughout the years, we'd see him at a con and he'd give me a page and I'd say, "Hey, take one of mine, man, have a sludge page," or whatever it was that I was working on. So I've got a few Paul Ryan pieces that as we move along and as the show progresses in the episodes to come that I'll share as well. But
yeah, I don't have anything Paul Ryan in my stables currently. I used to have a page from issue 361 of FF, and it had the thing Mr. Fantastic and Torch on it. But again, it's just a head talky page. It's not action. It's not anything like substantial. And I'm just like, again, it's just one of those pages where it's just like I have it to say I have a Paul Ryan FF page.
Right, exactly.
And so again, I don't have that anymore. So I do want to get something by it, but I want something nice. I want something that'll either blow your socks off or has some kind of significance to it to make it interesting.
I think the thing that would stun him, I think, is his stuff now is considered classic, right?
Yes.
So it is commanding 2, 3, 4 times as much, as it was when he was still alive, 10 years ago.
Isn't that how it always is for you guys? Your art is always worth more after you die. You never see the money.
Right, exactly. Well, I keep waiting for like some sludge stuff or something to be considered classic, and then people go, "Oh, I want some sludge originals." Well, I don't have many, but I've got some.
Let me think. Sludge was 90...
94, 93, 94.
Okay. I think it technically can be considered classic because it's 25 to 40 years is classic, and then 40 years and older is called vintage.
That's right. So start driving the prices up, you guys.
So yeah, the sludge stuff is officially classic. It's been classic for a few years now.
The thing is, I don't have any of the covers, and that's what everybody would spend money on, right? Is the covers. I've got some good interior pages. Like I got the very first splash page to #1 and some other things like that I kept. But what would anything that would be considered classic now and desirable probably has already been sold. I was on Comic Link, which is an auction site that I highly recommend. They have original art and comics. And I was talking with Dale Keown, and they had one of his Hulk covers up there, the one where he had the guns, he was kind of doing the Punisher.
Oh, issue 390. Yep.
That sold for $93,000. I sent that to Dale. I said, Dale, one of your Hulk covers just sold for $93,000. And he replied to me, swear jar, because he didn't sell it for 93 grand.
He probably didn't sell it for $930.
Well, he told me a story when he was on my show, my Sunday show a while ago, is that he had who was it? Mitch Ickowitz, I guess, kind of took advantage of him a little bit in that Mitch contacted him because he was at Marvel. Mitch was in the art return. See, back in the day, you do the artwork, send it into Marvel after the inked artwork, and then they would do all the scanning and photography or what statting back then. They weren't scanning.
Get it ready for production, yeah.
Right, and then that original artwork would go in the art returns room. And then eventually someone would get around to splitting it up and sending it off back to you as the penciler and the inker. Well, Mitch Ickowitz,
the basic breakdown basically was 2/3 the penciler, 1/3 to the inker.
That is correct. And they would switch, like you'd get, like as the penciler, I'd get the first, say we did 3 issues. The first 2 issues, I would get the first 2/3 of the book. And then the last issue, the other one would get, the inker would get the first third. That way, they always would get a splash page because generally there was a splash page.
And it was the same with covers. For if you guys worked on 3 covers together, you get 2 of the covers, and they get the third one. That way, everyone gets a cover.
Right, but we had no say in it. They would just split it up randomly and send it. When they started scanning stuff, the inker would have all the artwork, and then you could sit there and on the phone and negotiate. Go, no, I want that page. You can have this page and that kind of thing. But back then, it was just random. But anyway, so Mitch Itkowitz, art dealer, was there apparently, and he just contacted Dale and said, "Hey, you got a bunch of Hulk pages here. I'll give you $150 a piece for them." And Dale's like, "Okay," and he was like, shooting himself now. It's like, because
Mike Vosberg told me stories about this, about his G.I. Joe stuff. Like I said, I got the one page he found just as like he called it buried treasure because he didn't even know he had it anymore. He got that up at $4,000 right now, and yet he saw the one that sold from issue 22 for $13,000 at auction, and he's like, I was in the 80s, I was selling off those pages for like $10 and $20 a page.
I know. But I was doing some of that in the 90s. Somebody'd come up to you and go, he had a bunch of stack of pages you couldn't give away, right, for whatever they were. And someone go, I'll give you, I'll give you, $250 for,
stack
20 pages or $500 for, 100 pages or whatever. You're like, yeah, take it, just give me the money. And so, yeah, not exactly, great foresight there, but I have hung on to couple of splash pages from Planet Hulk.
Like I said, that's where Jim Ballard really came in, because I mean, I don't know if he knew to do that, or if it was he just loves his art so much himself that he wants to keep it. But he's kept a lot of his stuff, and he still has it to this day. And it's like that stuff would be buco dollars, those Catwoman covers and splashes, and oh my God, he could stop doing his tarot book tomorrow and just sell those pages, and he would never have to work again.
Well, that's what we say about Terry Austin. Terry Austin has all of his X-Men pages over Byrne and stuff. And it's like, I mean, he's literally sitting on millions of dollars. And it's like, and he's got to be, in his 70s now, I would imagine. It's kind of like, dude, sell that stuff and retire. And maybe yeah, you can't take it with you, man. Cash it in, baby. Oh, let's see. Pork Hunt from Australia says, Aaron Lopresti, here in Australia, if someone sells an artist's work they bought, the artist has to be given a percentage each time it's sold.
Wow.
That's, here's an interesting thing. Barry Smith started doing this, and I don't know, maybe 10, 20 years ago now, but if he sold an original piece of artwork, you have to sign a contract with him that if you resell it, he gets a percentage of like 20% or whatever. So, which is genius, really, because it's like that at least allows you that if someone sells your cover for $90,000, well, I'm going to get 20 grand out of it, at least, where you might have sold it for $1,000 or 1,500. I bet, Wrightson was, sick about some of the stuff that he let go. I was just looking at a look back, which I just got a new copy of, or a new to me copy, of course. And, that big coloring book he did, the oversized coloring book, all the monsters, he sold those. Let me see off the top of my head. I want to say it was between $250 and $400 a piece. And then if someone wanted them hand colored, he charged them double whatever he charged them for the piece. Right. So if he charged $400 for one of the drawings in the book, and they said, oh yeah, I'd like you to hand color it for me. Well, then it was $800. Now, of course, this was back in, 78, 79. So, we're talking about a different dollar, but still, those pieces now would be, some of them probably $60,000, $100,000, a couple of those, and it's like
some of them might even be more than that.
Yeah. And so it's really kind of crazy to think about. But I mean, you do that with comic books too and stuff you bought. And you say, oh, if I only hung on to that, like the guy, Charlie Lee, who had the Hulk #1. You don't know that 20 years from now it's going to be worth $100,000. You think, well, I spent $10 on this and I'll sell it for $200.
That's why things are as they are in the whole market. Why the stuff like, say, from 1980 and earlier is worth so much money, because no one thought it's going to be worth anything. And then after that, it's like, oh wait, this stuff can be worth money. And now after that, everyone saved everything, so there's tons of it, and it's not worth nothing.
Exactly.
Let me seal away my 10 copies of Spawn #1, and I'll retire to Pivot Island in 20 years. No, that's not happening, son. Sorry, everyone else did that along with you. That didn't happen.
No, everybody's got a 9.8 of that,
Just people with 10s.
Yeah.
10s, and it's like, that's like $100 book now. What? Spawn #1 10? It's like, yeah, but everyone's got one.
I know. Try to find someone to buy it. That's the question. That doesn't already have it.
You'd be lucky to get the $100.
Oh man, collecting, and yet we continue to do it. So we're driving the industry.
Well, I've always said this about the true collector: if the market crashed tomorrow and all this stuff became worthless, would you still go out and spend the money that the prices that are being asked for stuff as it is? And if you say yes, I would, you're a true collector.
Well, I can tell you right now, if the market crashed and my stuff wasn't worth anything, I'd go buy it from the guy who didn't think his stuff was worth anything either, so I can get it cheaper.
I have a friend who that's what he does. Is everywhere he goes, he looks for the old Atlas comics, not the old one when it was Marvel, the Atlas later, the Atlas Seaboard from the 70s.
Right.
It only lasted for like 3 or 4 issues each book. And if he finds them, he just buys them all. So if those Atlas books ever become worth anything, oh my God, he's sitting on a treasure trove.
He's got all of them. The hard thing,
copies of them all. I mean, it's just like, dude, you're gonna be like multimillionaire, mega rich. But I have to play the lotto.
Those are great books, and I remember buying some of those when they came out because I believe it was Martin Goodman, after he sold Marvel, went and started Atlas Seaboard Publishing, and it was offering better rates.
A lot of the good artists and writers who were working at the time from Marvel and DC tried to poach,
right, because he paid them more. And but there's nothing to drive the interest in those characters. That's the problem. It's like the Ultraverse. It's cool, but there's nothing to drive the interest in those characters in the market.
The problem with the Ultraverse is it's owned by Marvel, and they don't want the competition, and so they just own those characters so that they can never become that type of a thing.
Right. When there's a difference
between them not being that because they're not being used, and then the difference they're not that because they just never caught on. There's a complete difference between those two.
That's true.
I think plenty of the Ultraverse characters could become very popular if they would be able to be used, but Marvel's not going to do it.
Nope. But no, you're right. But it still comes down to exposure, right? And something to drive interest in those characters. If someone bought the Atlas catalog and started turning them into TV shows, those books would go through the roof.
Oh yeah.
Right.
But again, and to bring it full circle back to our love of comics, again, especially with mine, what was it that got me into the comics? All the other franchises, things that were not comics.
Yes.
Made me go out and pick up the comics, and then having access to them in other places, Kmart's, vending machines, the magazine shops. I mean, they were everywhere you could find them, and that's so accessibility and getting the stuff out there in other formats. Yeah, that definitely is a way to go to drive the sales, and that's something they don't really do that much of today.
No. Statistical Zero says, hello all, popping into post Dairy Queen date to say hello. I want to go on a date to the Dairy Queen, man, and get some ice cream or something. That sounds like a good deal.
I don't know. It's still a little too cold for ice cream, I think.
Well, that's true. You just reminded me, like, what is it, like 20 degrees outside or something, or 30 degrees right now? It's and wet. So it's like twice as bad.
A little too cool for 3 months. We'll start thinking about ice cream.
Yeah, exactly. David Brohawk Williams is in the chat. Howdy, David. And I want to remind everybody, I don't have a link for it in here, but David has a new project with Gabe Eltieb launched on Indiegogo called Truth, Justice, American Way. It's a very classic superhero adventure. If you haven't checked that out, make your way over there to Indiegogo, and it's Truth, Justice,
I backed it.
American Way.
I backed it on the first day. I'm backer number 7.
Yep, me too. It looks like just like a great classic sort of fun comic. I'm really looking forward to that.
What? But comics that are fun? What?
I know. Who would have thought? What a concept. Well, I think we've covered all of our material for today. Do you want to plug anything?
Other than con story time?
Oh, that's right. I forgot. No, you go ahead.
Okay.
I got to think of which one I'm going to share here.
Okay. So again, keeping it in the vein of love.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you a story. This is a story, not so much for me. I mean, I'm in it, of course, but it's more my wife's story.
Oh.
I took her to her very first convention back in 1998 in Portland. And the Astro City crew was there, Alex Ross and Kurt Busiek and Brent Anderson and Marv Wolfman, who wrote Teen Titans that she loved. She loved the Donna Troy, who was Donna Troy's story. That was her first experience. It blew her away. She just like, but this is years later. This is 2002, November. Okay, and there was a guy. His name's Steve Miner. You probably know who that is.
Oh yeah.
He did a Seattle Comic Card show, 1-day show up in Seattle. He did like 3 or 4 a year. And I always like those shows because I call those the buyers conventions, because everyone's brought all the stuff. You're going to get good bargains in a 1-day show because no one wants to drag all that stuff back with them.
Right, exactly.
So I always love those shows. And we were going to this one because Joe Staton was there.
Mm-hmm.
And she loves Joe Staton. Like Joe Staton is like one of the guys she grew up reading as a kid. Him and like Jose Delbo were like the 2 main guys because she read Wonder Woman and she read, The Huntress and all this stuff. So she read all these characters they worked on. She read All-Star Squad with Power Girl, and that was all Joe Staton. So she loves Joe Staton's work. And when she saw he was there, she's like, I gotta meet him. Like, okay, we'll go meet him. I said, because I was always head up to go to the shows. Always. I was always the one probably dragging her more often than not.
Right.
Now when we went to go to this one again, remember this was in late November. So you have to travel over mountains to get to Seattle. And it was snowing. and it wasn't flurries. Let's just put it that way. And so some of those curves, when you're going over the mountains, you're kind of close to an edge there, and you're like, yeah, I don't want to take that drop.
Yeah.
And we're sitting here, and as we're driving along, it's getting worse and worse and worse. The closer we get to the summit, it's getting worse. We're like, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, maybe this is a sign we should turn around. Again, I remember me, I'm head up to always go, and I'm saying, maybe we should turn around. She looked at me. She slowed the car down and turned her head to look at me, and she had this look on her face and her eyes. I mean, it was like daggers. It's like, screw that. I'm going to meet Joe Staten. I'm like, okay, we're going to the show. Okay, we're going.
Obviously, you made it.
Well, obviously, we made it. We get there, and she starts gushing on him like some giddy schoolgirl about, oh, I love your work so much, and oh, I loved when you did Power Girl, and I loved your Huntress, and all just pouring out of her all this love from like years. And Joe's sitting there and he's smiling, but I can kind of tell he's a little taken aback, like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this kind of a reaction. He's not used to this rock star thing of like, woman throwing panties on the stage type thing. He's not used to this. Like, whoa, what's this? And so she puts her books down, and these aren't like books like me. Whenever I would go to shows, I would go out, like if I want to get some stuff signed, I go to a store and I buy a few copies of some things in nice condition to get a nice copy signed. She didn't. She dug out her old original All-Star Squad books and stuff like that, and they're all beat, cracks in the spine and creases in the cover. Some of them, she when she was a kid, she would like use little red ink to make their lips redder because she wanted them to be really red. So these are all beat the crap books, and he puts them down, and he looks at them, and he looks up and he goes, "Are you sure you want me to sign these?" And she goes, "Oh, these are my books. I love them so much as a kid, and I still love them so much." And she's again extolling all this stuff. So he signed them, and so I looked at him. I said, "Are you doing sketches?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm doing some sketches." I said, "Could you do a sketch for us and for her, because I want her to have one?" And he's like, "Sure. Who do you want?" And of course, she picked Helena Wayne, the Huntress. That was like one of her favorite characters ever. Is the Helena Wayne Huntress. And so,
well, he was co-creator on that, wasn't he?
I believe he was. Yeah,
he was the first guy to draw it.
Here it is. If you want to share my screen here, big me up.
Yeah.
A little bonus art for you guys. This is from her collection. This is the Huntress sketch that he did for her, and you can see right down there, Joe Staten, Seattle, 2002. So there it is.
There it is.
And to this day, she swears that he put something extra in this sketch just for her. you
can tell he put some extra.
So beautiful. She's like, I know he put extra in just because he saw I was such a fan. I know he did. But yeah,
that's terrific.
It's probably the one time I ever had a second thought ever about turning back from a show. And she wouldn't let me. He's like, screw that. I'm going to meet Joe Staten. Okay.
Yeah, my wife would have been, we're not even getting in the car, pal, if it's snowing out. But now I will share a Shelley story. I have a few of them, but I will share a Shelley story to match your, you have a wife story, so I'll tell a wife story. So Shelley would go, we would get invited to these Portland shows that Richard Finn used to put on, these one days. They were actually really good shows. He'd draw on about anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 people, which is a really, really good one-day show.
Was that the show called Second Genesis?
Yeah, that's what it started out as, and it became the Portland Comic Book Show, and it was always underneath the Coliseum.
Yes, I remember that show.
And so even if we weren't guests, they would like invite us to go out to dinner afterwards, because we were always so good at talking to the other guests and be able to keep conversations going and stuff. But so Shelley didn't go to a lot of the shows with me, but this one she did, because we were going to dinner afterwards. And so we went to dinner afterwards at Tony Romo's, a place for ribs, which I don't even think exists anymore. But so we're sitting there, and one of the guests at the show was this former Playboy model. Okay.
Uh-oh.
And she was, I think Steve Rude and her were working on this comic project of her, making her a superhero or something like that. So we're sitting there at dinner. And I kid you not. So she's telling this story to Shelley. They're sitting next to each other. And I was sitting across. So I was kind of in on the conversation, but not directly. But I was, eavesdropping. I think Ron Friends was at that show as well. Because I think he had a good laugh at this too, if I recall. But so she's telling this story. And then she starts talking about her teenage daughter, right? And about all these problems she's having with her teenage daughter. And then she ends the thing by saying, yeah, she goes, I don't know what it is with my daughter, but she just has no respect for me. And Shelley looks her in the eye and says, gee, I wonder why. and she, I mean, she was kind of the epitome of kind of a dumb blonde, this gal was. So she paused for a second and looked at Shelley like maybe she had just been insulted, but then she just kind of laughed it off and yeah, I guess. And and I was like, oh my God.
Now, my wife wouldn't have said that. She would have thought it loudly, but she wouldn't have said it.
I can't believe Shelley said it, but anybody that watches our show and sees Shelley at work on Twitter and social media knows that sometimes she'll speak her mind. And I think she was like,
hey, she's the reason the creation for the language alert button.
Yeah, exactly. So, but oh my gosh, I'm almost positive Ron Friends was sitting next to me. We both just went, oh my gosh, and started busting up. That was classic. So that was a very early Shelleyism there that I'll never forget.
Oh, the wives!
I tell you,
they keep life interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's funny. Statistical zero. There you go. Shelley shred time. But it was so funny because you could tell it was building, because this woman was talking about, being a Playboy model and all this kind of crap, and just kind of, and it was just, Shelley was really getting annoyed. So by the time she came to that point where she said, yeah, my daughter has no respect for me, Shelley's like, I wonder why.
I mean, that's like almost something out of a movie.
I know. I was like, that was classic though. That was good stuff. So anyway, be careful if you go to dinner with
moments like that happen. They're hilarious. I remember when I was working at this video store called Crazy Mike's Video.
Yeah. And
there was this guy who worked there. His name was Chad. And he had glasses and he had a shaved head, but he looked a lot like Buddy Holly, but he was real tall.
Mm-hmm.
And one day he was working with the manager, and these two women walk into the store, and they're holding hands, and they wave to him, hi, how you doing? He's behind the counter, and he goes, oh, hi, how you doing? And they walk out to the new release wall to see what's available. And he looks over to the manager and he goes, hey, Brant, did you see the two women that just walked in? And the manager looked up from whatever he was doing, was like, oh, you mean the lesbians? He's like, how do you know they're lesbians? And he goes, dude, look at them. And so then that was it. A couple weeks later, I'm working with him on the night shift. And I'd been checking some videos in. I was getting ready to put them out. I was reading a comic, just sitting in the back reading a comic while I was waiting for some more videos to come in. And the two women come in again. And, he's up at the front and hi. And they walk out to the new release wall. And he goes, hey, James, did you see the two women just came in here? And I look up from the comp. I'm like, oh, you mean the lesbians? He's like, yeah, that's what Brant said too. He said they were lesbians. How can you tell? And I went, dude, look at them. He just fell out laughing. He said it felt like it was in a Kevin Smith film.
Well, if they're holding hands, and he might figure it.
Yeah, but it just it's hilarious. It's just because it was funny because we both said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the lesbians? Dude, look at them. Both of us, word for word.
Jeez.
He said he felt like it was in a scripted movie.
Yeah, you guys were setting him up. Pork Hunt says, Aaron, you need to get Shelley to negotiate a peace deal with Russia and Ukraine.
I'm not sure how that would work out too well.
There would be a lot of this going on after about 15 minutes. There'd
be a lot of mean tweeting going on, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
Well, this has been an entertaining hour and a half, for sure.
It has.
Yeah. I want to thank everybody in the chat for joining us. and listening to us go on about our stories and our comic covers and our original art and con stories and the whole 9 yards. We appreciate you guys coming in and supporting us, and reminding you that we do this once a month at the last Saturday of every month.
Next one, March 26th, guys. Mark it on your calendars. March 26th.
He's got it all figured out. So he just tells me what we're talking about.
And I have it already. Back Wraith of God on Indiegogo today. Don't be a knucklehead.
That's right. Don't be a knucklehead. And the link is in the description, as well as for you.
My links. I got the links down there for both the art gallery, where the art is for sale. Again, very reasonably priced, most of it, guys. So if you're looking to get some bargains, you can find them there. It's not like you're going to find in a lot of other places. The MeWe group, where I put up all information on everything going on with the artist and myself. And also down there is my YouTube channel, where I do stuff on there. And I just did one last week. I did a unboxing called The Art of Unboxing. Whenever I get new art from the artists, I unbox it live for everyone, so we all get to see it. I just did one from Mike Bosberg, had some good stuff in there. So
cool.
Head on over to my channel after this and subscribe and check out the stuff over there.
Fantastic.
And of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to Aaron's channel, because what are you doing?
That's right. Like and subscribe. And speaking of that, Shelly and I will be back tomorrow at 5 for our show. And JC Vaughn will be joining me, because we are going to have an exclusive reveal of the final cover to the Overstreet Price Guide, which just happens to be the one that I did. So
nice.
If you want to see it first, before anyone else sees it, we're going to show it on my show tomorrow night. So join me at 5, and like JC will be rolling in about 5:30 after Shelly and I do our whatever it is that we do.
The opening bits.
The opening bits.
Have to monitor her language.
That's right, exactly. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. We had a great time, and we will see you soon, either on one of our channels or when we next meet again on Comic Art Convo. Everybody enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a great week ahead of you. Thanks a lot for joining us.